Right. I was actually going to record this as a upload, but I decided I changed my mind because I didn't really like the finished product. So I've been keeping up with the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc in the manga for Dragon Ball Super. And I swear this series has like this weird thing where it'll get me to kind of look at it in a hopeful manner, and then it'll just completely throw out that hope with whatever the next installment is. So let me do a little bit of a retrospective on how I felt about chapter 56. I was really getting sick of the other characters just not being involved. It was just Goku and Vegeta, and you had a little bit of Piccolo, and then you had what was that, two chapters of Gohan and Krillin being involved. So when they did the last chapter, and we saw Yamcha and Tien and the androids and all these other people, all seeming as if they were going to have a one-on-one with a different member of Moro's crew. I said, "Oh, this is great because now they can actually do something that, in some capacity, moves forward the story." I said hello to Ruben. Well, I'm so disappointed that for abruptly leaving the stream from yesterday, but whatever. Oh, by the way, Ruben, I actually did do a stream. I think it was what, the week before last, about a bridged ending, and the only person that showed up was a troll, and they got mad because I was ignoring them. But yeah, getting back to what I was saying, it looked really cool because the chapter set up each character to have some fight that was actually going to move the story along. And I thought we were going to see maybe two or three chapters, because it was a bunch of different characters fighting multiple people, four or five different fights. So I thought that's probably going to be enough content for maybe two or three chapters, and then we will get the conclusion. So the actual, battle against Moro when he comes to Earth, and all of his forces have been taken down, and the whole group is holding them off until Goku and Vegeta show up. But instead, we got this rushed, uh, almost. And I said before that it feels like Super has this thing where if it's not focused on Goku or Vegeta, it has like a defect button where it's too afraid to try and give anyone else any long-term development. So just like I have this upload coming out where it's about how Android 17 broke Super, or broke Dragon Ball in general, because it was established that when a character is weaker than other characters, they get stronger by training or fighting stronger opponents. And the last time we saw him canonically, he was weaker than Cell's first form. And then he shows up in Super and is just magically strong enough to fight Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and then also be able to stand toe to toe with Jiren. And I was just sitting here watching this, just saying, "What the hell?" And I was saying that because all the series had to do for no one to question why he had that massive leap in strength was have a couple of episodes, if not 10, showing him training against various characters up until he trains with Beerus and Whis, and having these characters remark on his growth and strength and whatnot. That would have explained it entirely. We would have actually seen him get this massive leap in power, and then nobody would be saying that he just randomly came back stronger because the writers felt like doing that. What happened is that they had no type of care or concern for the rules of their own universe and just decided to be lazy. So now when we get our arc where Yamcha comes back and is able to beat up Super Saiyan 3 tier characters, don't be too surprised. They already set that with 17. Let me say little Megumi. Ruben, I'm just so sick of the only character from Z that was antagonistic I want to see brought back is Cell, and Toriyama is tired of drawing his spots, so we're probably not going to see him come back unless it's a new form. But like I was saying, um, the chapter was so rushed. You had Krillin versus, I think his name is Yunba, the panda looking guy, the one that I think Ruben was making reference to to Kung Fu Panda being in Super. That fight between them, I think, was 2 pages, 3 pages, and you had people who were going, "Oh man, Krillin got a win. He got a victory." It's like, yeah, but I mean, we don't get to see him train. We don't get to see any really any kind of difference at all. It's just he fought him a few chapters ago, and now because months have passed, he's now magically stronger. That's a nice little thing they've done where they decided to. And I told you, Super has a thing where they kind of get scared of showing people actually experience a growth in power for whatever reason. Sorry about that. Super is the only series I haven't seen fully. Well, if you want to review the first two arcs, other than maybe 4 or 5 episodes, or just longer, more boring versions of the movies rather. The tournament that first tournament is kind of meh, except for the parts where Vegeta's fighting all the contestants, and the manga version of that tournament is better because they have Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan Vegeta lose to Hit, and then Goku fights in his normal form and is apparently basically supposed to be on par with that form of Vegeta. It's really weird. Uh, the Goku Black arc has all kind of weird pacing issues, and that ending was just god awful. We're gonna make sure the villain wins and succeeds in destroying the universe. What a terrific way for an arc of Dragon Ball to end. That's very great. And you had people, that arc actually kind of reminds me of The Last Jedi, where you had people who were saying it was good just because it subverted your expectations. And that's why I kept saying that imagine if Z ended with Kid Buu destroying Earth. Like that was the end of the manga, where the only people that were alive by the end of it were Goku, Vegeta, and Hercule. That would have been great because it subverted your expectations. Automatically, that would have been a good conclusion to the story. No, they have not brought anyone back from GT. I remember seeing that part of the episode. And the Tournament of Power has there's like a consensus that basically, if you weren't on Universe 7, 6, or Jiren's team, you pretty much got no development or wins. That the rest of the groups were just around to be cannon fodder for everybody else to look stronger off of. So they designed all these, and we knew that it wasn't going to last because no smart company is going to design 50, 60 plus new characters and then throw them all out in one arc. It's stupid. So we knew that they were going to, just by virtue of how many universes were competing, we knew it wasn't going to actually hold water, this supposed elimination of everyone. But yeah, getting back to this chapter, you had 2 or 3 pages of that Krillin fight. You had about 2 pages of Tien fighting. You had a page of Yamcha, I think. It was just so damn rushed. And the thing is, I keep being reminded of those first 5 or 6 chapters of this arc where it was Goku and Vegeta on Namek, and it just felt like that took so long and they were so slow. And now just hyper speed to get to the conclusion of this. And the reason it's kind of annoying also is that it's agreed that the Tournament of Power in the manga is severely inferior to the one that was in the anime because of how rushed it was, where you had, tens of characters getting knocked out without any development. And the theory that all of us had was that the manga was going to continue after the term, which it did, and that Toyotaro, the person that draws it and apparently writes it with Toriyama, was trying to get to his own original thing within the same year of the anime endings to keep people's interest sustained. And the fact that this was going slower at the start, I thought, okay, now we're in something that he actually wants to tell and take his time with. But when you get a chapter like this where characters who are supposedly important are getting beat up and taken out, a whole bunch of them in just pages, it goes back to that whole thing of the pacing issues with this series. Because really, what he could have done, as I said before, due to the sheer number of fights, was have 2 or 3 chapters of each one of these fights where you've got 5 pages of Krillin versus Yunba and then 3 pages of Tien versus the other person, and just kind of have it keep looping back and forth for about a couple of months. And then Moro could see this, come down to earth as he did at the end of this chapter, get pissed off, or kind of want to play with them a little bit more, and then give his power up to his top lieutenant person, and then we could literally have the exact same story, just with more care and concern given to the nature of these fights. Because it literally just felt like a flash. Like they just go up, punch this person. I mean, I'm not even. I already said that. I kind of the manga's at its best for me when it's not Goku and Vegeta because I'm so damn sick of these two characters hogging on the spotlight. But I still vividly remember what occurs in their initial fight with Moro, where Vegeta saves the. I think his name is Eska, the Namekian, uh, and then he has a fight with him, and then Goku has a fight with him, and that's when they learn about his powers. I can. What I'm saying is because they took their time with that first fight, I can still remember the basic beats of it. The same thing with when Blue fought Moro before they put him to sleep for the fifth arc in a row. I can remember that he was beating him up, and then Miras got involved, and then he was able to escape. And the point is that with those encounters, because they were given proper focus and time to actually take place. They didn't feel as though they were these little small, insignificant skirmishes. Hell, even Piccolo's fight with the siblings that came to Earth, it was given the whole chapter basically. It's just so weird. They have this like all the other chapters of this arc up until this one had some basic sense of pacing. Like I thought, what was it, 55 was really boring in comparison with the ones around it because it reverted right back to the Goku and Vegeta show or manga or whatever. But it still, admittedly, to its credit, because I said before that if a story does something that I like, which is one of them being not rushing it, I'll give it credit. So that chapter I would still give credit for actually having a decent pace. Android 17's clone should get brought back so that his original Super Return can get even more incoherent. Oh, we're gonna have a Super 17, a resurrected one. I'd say they've been pushing him like crazy. I remember it was funny because before last chapter, he hadn't made any appearances canonically since the Tournament of Power. And there were people who were arguing that he should have stayed dead at the end of that tournament because he's not in the ending of Z. So he's the only character who could have died in that tournament besides Frieza that could, actually would have some lasting meaning. And this other person was arguing that they were glad they kept him because that meant they could use him for further stuff. And the guy's exact words were, "What difference did it make to have him be alive for that stupid movie and that stupid manga referring to this current arc if he wasn't going to be in either one of them?" And now they did put him in this. It was just funny because what he said was true, that him surviving doesn't matter if he's not used further in the story. It's like him and Roshi, they're just pushing so much now. Like those two characters that people thought were kind of done, they decided to bring back, which, I mean, the only thing that I got annoyed with Roshi over was that he seems to take away attention from Yamcha, who was established as being a stronger character. And that kind of is annoying to me, but it is what it is. Okay. Megumi says, yeah, it was really not thought out and rushed, it seems. Now you should see Twitter. They were over there praising, oh my God, the other characters got to shine. And I'm like, okay, they get a page or two of fighting out of, what is this, 15 chapters of Goku and Vegeta getting to fight, getting to go to another planet, getting to train, getting to do all kind of stuff that isn't just this rushed conglomerates. That's why I said that modern Dragon Ball is basically Goku and Vegeta guest starring the Z fighters, because it'll be these two characters getting all this focus, and only time you ever see the other ones is if they're there to stall until the main two show up. And then the main two is really the main one, because we know Vegeta's training isn't going to amount to him actually beating Moro. It's just going to be some new thing that they either waste or don't have actually take place. And I kept trying to explain to this person that you might look at the supposed trend, which by the way, actually, I think this last chapter was the first one Vegeta wasn't in the entire series. Like some of these characters we haven't seen in 20 or like a year or 2 years or 3 years in the manga, and this might be the first time ever that Vegeta wasn't in the chapter. But it was kind of funny because this person said, "Why would they make Vegeta do all that training just for him to not actually beat Moro or play a role in beating?" I said, "Well, look at what they did to Krillin and Gohan during the Tournament of Power. Yeah, Krillin saying, 'Oh, I want to go back to being a fighter. I want to train,' and then he gets taken out in a couple, literally the first person to get taken out of Universe 7's team, and then Gohan had the same thing of 'I want to be a fighter,' and then he ends up having to be eliminated with the third guy on Universe 11's team. So I'm not too surprised when they make it appear that a character is actually going to get to do something important, and then they just. But again, it's good because they subverted our expectation. I already said the only characters they really should be, if they're really serious about training, actually matters, not popularity or who would look the coolest according to the writers. The character that should have come back the strongest was Tien because he always trains. He's the human Goku. He keeps training no matter what. But instead, he gets a little itty bitty few pages in this chapter where he doesn't even get to take out the foe by himself. And by the way, that fight was really stupid. Oh, we have a villain who's weak to bad words or to getting insulted. We're gonna have him fight the person who actually trains, so we can further show how of little significance it is to actually do what this series suggests. And then that fusion, if you read the chapter, that big old so I was actually thinking that with those three chicks, they were gonna have each one of them fight a different character because there's enough of them, enough of the Z fighters for each one to have an individual fight with one of them. Especially since they got rid of 7-3, that's the guy that touches everybody's necks. So when they fuse, I'm like, oh well, thank you for wasting three characters that could have all had one-on-one fights that would have been interesting to see because in Dragon Ball it's like one chick for every 4 or 5 dudes or something. It's a big old sausage fest. So to actually get some chicks as antagonists wouldn't have been that bad. But they all fuse into this form, uh, and they go from being weaker than Roshi to being stronger than him and Krillin. And I'm just sitting here scratching my head, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We can't give the human characters, especially one human character in particular, Krillin, two wins in one chapter. People would go insane. So we have to have him get wrecked by this new form and uh, go and have to rely on Goku to save him. When if they were actually being cool, they could have had him teleport right behind her and use the Kienzon and cut her in half. But again, they don't want any character that's not a Saiyan to do something cool. So we had Krillin get a couple of pages to beat up some guy that he struggled with for multiple chapters, and then a villain that is weaker than Roshi gets to fuse, and now is suddenly overpowering him. And also, I said before that even if you didn't want him to win, all they had to do was say, I could probably have defeated her if I wasn't weaker from my fight with the other character, and because of him being battle damaged, so to speak, he can't. It's kind of like when Gohan was weaker in fighting Super Perfect Cell because he got his arm broken when he saved Vegeta. That the circumstance caused it to be more. Yeah, always disrespected as usual. They gave him a little thing this chapter, and then they just took it right away in the same one. So his contribution is to go, "Ugh," and then Goku's like, "Oh, I know where they are now. Thanks, Krillin." And then they have him show up in his base form and take her out in one hit. So that proves that no matter how much training Krillin does, he'll always be weaker than base form Goku. The character who trains is weaker than base form Goku, but the one that sits in the woods and plays with poachers that Kid Goku could have beaten at the start of Dragon Ball is supposedly as strong as a Super Saiyan Blue. That makes a lot of sense. I'm referring to 17 when I said that. Like that, and this series has this weird thing of like making the humans out to just not be able to do anything, and it does it when it makes no sense. Like if you want to have Yamcha or Roshi lose, it at least has some kind of meaning because it's established they don't train. But when you have Krillin and Tien supposedly training and they're still getting defeated and back to it just comes off as crappy writing for the sake of propping up other characters. They're just too lazy to actually work with their own rules, as I said earlier. Which is why I get so annoyed with this series because a lot of the fans, I believe, kind of just take whatever is given to them, and that's why the writers, like I tried to say before, one of the reasons we had those two tournaments was because the writers had to force themselves to basically use the other characters. Because up to that point in Super, we really hadn't seen any of the other ones being used that often, other than just as background extras for against Frieza's army. And even when they use them in tournaments, they fail. Like when they say, "Oh, Boo's going to be in the first tournament." Oh, he went to he what did he fail the exam or something stupid. Oh, Piccolo's going to fight Frost. Oh, Frost cheated. Oh, Piccolo's going to go in. Oh no, Vegeta's going to take over. Okay, whatever. And like, what would it have killed if the chapter, instead of having Goku come back and save the day, ends with this big blob fusion of these three chicks beating up Krillin and Roshi, which in the next chapter would see the two of them team up to beat her. And then the other side was what's his? I think his name is Saganbo, the one that Moro powered up, having him fight the other four. The other four being the androids, Gohan and Piccolo. I don't really see where the harm went because it would have had stakes. The top character, basically, if you're gonna have Goku be strong enough to take out either of those in one hit or in base form or whatever, having like there's a reason Z kept him out of the story so much so they could add stakes of, hey, our A fighter isn't here, so the other people actually have to struggle. So if they had kept the chapter to not having him in it, or at least only having him in space trying to figure out where Earth was, they could have actually had another chapter that would have been exciting because you don't know for sure or not if Roshi and Krillin are going to beat that big fat fusion, and if the other characters are going to be able to beat their opponents. So when he shows up and takes her out in one hit, that immediately drops the stakes for the next chapter because we already know that that fusion is not going to be able to beat him. Not the fusion, the powered up form from Moro's top guy is going to lose, and then they're going to have just the exact same thing where we get maybe 2 or 3 chapters of that before Moro shows up, and Moro comes out and Vegeta shows up, and then we get the conclusion. Another rushed conclusion. I'm telling you, when I look at last chapter and then this one, it's like two different people wrote it. Like the person who wrote 56, I know it's not two different people, but just the pacing, because it's a really nice setup to a potentially continuous battle, but because the story is so afraid to not be on Goku and Vegeta for longer than a couple of moments or a couple of pages, it just says, "Nah, screw them. We got to make sure the Saiyans pop up again." Megumi said the Goku and Vegeta saga. It's been like this since they fought Kid Buu. Everything it has to be those two characters, just over and over again. God forbid if we actually focus on other people meaningfully. And then the person they focused on, 17, they did it for no damn reason. Because they were too lazy to actually come up with a way he became stronger. So they just kind of resorted to pulling something out of their behinds. I still can't believe fans didn't get that mad about that, or at least don't appear to have been that angry about it. I didn't scan every message board, but from what I saw, it was kind of like, oh, well, this just is expected. This massive leap in power. Yeah, man, this series has a whole bunch of cool characters that it abuses and misuses. Like, I still can't get over how the premise of this arc was for Boo to get kidnapped, and then we were supposed to learn about him and the Grand Supreme Kai's relationship and see him beat up Moro. And they said, "Oh my God, he's winning. We have to take him out of this story right now. We got to pull the plug." Man, I think 47. It's 47 and then 53. So whichever one it is when Piccolo beats up the siblings when they come to Earth, and the one where Boo stomps Moro, those are my favorite too, because it's other characters actually doing meaningful stuff. And then in the first case, the writers are like, "Oh no, we just accidentally told something that was too cool." So we have to make sure that's not allowed to happen anymore. When all they had to do, if they were smart, which they're not, spoiler alert for those people, for anyone who didn't read this, is have Moro say, "You know what? I can't fight Boo. I'm going to send some of my troops to go fight him." And then we have every other chapter, or every chapter, depending on what length of focus you want to give to it, Boo fighting and beating up all kind of different members of Moro's group, because it's a whole bunch of them. Uh, and you could have characters who are resistant to magic, who are resistant to his attacks, who are you could actually have him be involved in this story without taken away from, because I kept getting told that excuse. Oh, the reason they keep Boo out all the time is because his powers are too strong. Well, then make characters who are resistant to his powers. A good writer will create limitations and then work around them to tell a story that actually goes with the rules they've set up. Like, you can make a character who can turn people into chocolate, but you can't make a character who is resistant to that, or cannot be turned into candy or anything. Okay. So I said it's just people. A lot of people defend this. I think they turn off their critical thinking skills to just kind of blindly support writers being too lazy to actually think through a story. Like during the Goku, the future Trunks arc, where Goku Black pulls out the scythe and he's like, "Am I becoming stronger because I'm angry?" And I guess it's supposed to be intimidating because he doesn't know if his strength is being caused by his rage, but they don't really explain why he's just magically getting stronger. Megumi says, "Yeah, I was not expecting that at all." I don't know what Megumi is referring to. Yeah, it's like every other chapter they get me excited and then they find a way to disappoint me. Like I remember in the one where Piccolo stomps the siblings, uh, you have Jacko saying, "Oh, we need to go get Gohan and the two bald guys." I'm like, "Oh my God, they're gonna have Tien do something." And I was waiting all month. I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to see Tien fight," because he hasn't like his role in Super has just been garbage in my opinion. Even with the Tournament of Power, because he didn't even do anything there other than stand around and lose for no reason. Uh, but the exact next chapter comes out a month later. He's not in it because, according to Krillin, he doesn't have a cell phone. That's a really convenient excuse to keep him out of the story. The guy who is supposedly the second strongest Earthling is too stupid to get a phone or some way. And then on top of that, I could have sworn that Piccolo was telekinetic, so couldn't he have, or telepathic? Because didn't he do that in the Broly movie? So couldn't he have telepathically, summoned him and said, "Hey, we need you over here"? Someone actually did make a video where, well, the reason you didn't expect it is because you actually watch this series and you see how much they just prop up Goku and Vegeta. Like, I didn't expect for Goku to get eliminated at the start of the Universe 6 tournament, but there were people who reviewed that and said he's probably going to come back somehow. There's no way they're going to keep him out. Dude, the original Dragon Ball, Toriyama knew how to do surprising things, like having him lose the first two tournaments. Nobody saw that come when they were reading it, because it's always expected that the good guy or the protagonist is going to win. I like how the in the third one is like, you have to win or the Earth is going to be destroyed or taken over. No, the original was just so much better than what we have now. It's really crazy. But yeah, the reason you didn't expect that was because they played the suck off game for the same two characters arc after arc, episode after episode, season after season, year after year. I'm telling you, it's like all the fan backlash of them trying to turn this into the Goku show just resulted in them turning it into the Goku and Vegeta show. Like they refuse to let anybody else get the same. And even if they give someone like, let's say, 17 a role for like an arc or something, it's always a temporary status kind of deal. It's never anything continuous. And that's pretty much what we have here, where you get a little chapter or two of someone else doing something, then it's right back to Goku and Vegeta. God forbid they don't fight or they get to stay out of the story for just a tiny part of it. No, they really. I mean, that's why people don't like that character. He's just a person who's ridiculously strong for the sake of, and he doesn't have an endearing personality. He's just an obstacle in the way because reasons. In my opinion, they should have just made Topo and Dispo, and then probably put one of those other characters in that top three group from Universe 11, because they were. I thought the both of them were actually pretty entertaining, especially Topo. I remember this one guy said uh, that Jiren was going to be in the Broly movie and get knocked out or beat down or whatever by whoever, because this is before we actually found out it was a Broly film. So that was when we still had that first trailer of Broly just kind of doing his little power up thing. We didn't know who he was, and I said, "There's no way he's going to be in that movie, other than maybe some itty bitty, minuscule, meaningless cameo." Because the way this series works, they even call it the Dragon Ball demotion. You show up, have a decent role in one arc, completely forgotten of afterward. I remember everybody was so excited to see Yamcha again. They were like, "Oh my god, he's going to be able to fight for the first time in Super! Yay!" Oh, by the way, Megumi, my theory turned out to be true, because the only thing Jiren did in that whole movie was like appear on screen for like 5 seconds in a flashback of the Tournament of Power. So that ended up being correct, but that's not because I'm a genius or I'm a Nostradamus or something. It's because we know how this stupid series works. They have a character that does something and then they just get demoted. They've been doing that to Piccolo for like 10 arcs by this point. Man, he got the worst. Because the reason he bothers me is that they, I still can't get over 3 years ago, or what was it, 4 years ago, when they put out that Universe 6 arc uh, poster, and he was right there with Boo and that Monaka or whatever that guy's name is, and I was so excited, and then neither of them did anything in that tournament other than get one fight and go to sleep. Get one fight where they got cheated and whatnot. It's just this series is just. I feel like one of those when I like with Super, and especially with just the latter, like the parts of Dragon Ball after the Cell arc. My feelings of it are that I could compare it to a child in like a candy store who has $4 and they want to buy some $5 piece of candy, and all the $3, $2 ones are all Goku and Vegeta, and then the $5 one is Piccolo and all the other characters. So they want to see the other characters do something, have a meaningful role in the story, but it just can never come. It seems like they can do it almost because you got $4, things $5, but it never can come for some reason. We know what the reason is, because the writers are a bunch of cowards. That's why I was shocked they even let 17 win that tournament. That was one of the main aspects what dissuaded me to watch the series properly. Yeah, it's been getting on my nerves too. And you have a lot of the fans who have like straw man arguments where they go, "Well, that Dragon Ball always does this, so you shouldn't complain." I said, "Well, if it always demotes characters after the first arc that they show up in, why does Vegeta have a major role in every arc after the Saiyan arc, or after he first showed up. I don't really understand. Because Goku, he's the main character, so you can't complain. I can't complain if I think the show is doing something stupid, because I actually look at things critically. I'm gonna say it's dumb. Where did Ruben go? He just vanished. He must have been eaten by Popo or something. Because he did mention he was watching clips. That's where he vanished too. No, but they're not serious about telling a good story. They just want to have a little decent setup and then have a bunch of random stuff happen in between. And it's just kind of lame. I mean, you can look at every arc of the series, even the Boo arc, which is my least favorite out of Z, and they always have characters training or doing something that forwards their powers. And it seems as if the closest we can get now is maybe like a page or a little excerpt of someone doing it. Like last chapter, we got a page of Vegeta training, and it's just so lame. I wish they could actually show that again. Well, that's because they don't want to accept the fact that there are legitimate critiques that can be laid at its helm. Just and I even had said before that when they were doing the stuff on Namek, I didn't really enjoy it that much because it's just Goku and Vegeta doing something, blah 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 blah. But I still thought the pacing was good. I still thought it was taking its time. It was introducing us to Moro, his little cranberry friend, the one that was flying them around. So even in not having my favorite character show up, I still said the story was at least doing something right with how its pacing was going. Because the Tournament of Power in the manga again is just ridiculously fast for no reason other than the writer not caring. So when we get to the point where after Boo beats up Moro, it just starts moving ridiculously crazy. Doesn't matter if does not make sense or if the pacing is off. I mean, that was a similar issue I had with the Boo arc. All these forms of Boo, and just it felt like it was dragging on until Super Boo killed everybody, and then it started to move a little bit quicker. And also the fact that all these if you remember with the future Trunks arc, the Mafuba was supposedly going to make a big comeback and seal one of the Zamasu alternate versions in there, and then all it does is basically get used once and end up not really doing anything or meaning anything in the long run at all. Like it's just red herring. They just try to make you think this technique is going to matter when it doesn't. That's basically what happened with the Boo arc times three. Super Saiyan 3 meant nothing. The fusions meant nothing. Like they're all just there to waste time. I think Super Saiyan God is a pretty lazy design, but it at least in the Battle of Gods film and arc actually is used effectively to stall Beerus. It moves the story forward. I know, right? Yeah, but that's my issue that they keep trying to with the fans. They do this thing when an arc is ongoing where they'll tell you, oh, it's definitely filler. Where they'll tell you that a move or something that is in the story is there for a good reason, and they'll be able to get away with it because it's ongoing. We don't know how it's going to end. Then when it's finished, they say, "Yeah, that might not have made that much of a difference." Then why did you even defend it? You got fans right now. Oh man, Vegeta's training is definitely going to matter. And it's like, but if he doesn't beat Moro, if he doesn't contribute to him being defeated, what's the point? Power levels don't even mean anything. I already justified that position of mine when I mentioned what they did with 17, where they were too lazy to give him a couple of episodes or chapters or whatever training to actually justify the increase in power. So they just magically had him stronger for no reason. Now, those forms can be one of the most strangest things because I guess I've never felt such an attachment to probably any property where if someone critiqued a part of it or just it in general, I just went and got mad and went, "You don't know what you're talking about. This makes sense because bleh." Like I've had plenty of fans of this series say they don't like the Cell arc as much as Boo, which I think has a much coherent story and doesn't waste characters as much. But I at least am content enough with why I like it more than Boo to not try and pretend that it's perfect or that it doesn't have issues. You get the point that it's just people trying to turn off any kind of. I mean, you should see on one of the forums where they actually antagonize people who say they don't like something about the series. Like this one guy was mad that the Broly film didn't use any of the characters that weren't Saiyans other than Piccolo, and I guess technically Krillin in a flashback. And the response was, "Well, if you didn't like it, why did you watch it?" It's like, damn, he just told you how he personally felt. He didn't even say it was a bad movie. He just said he didn't like that, and they jumped down his throat. Like they'll ask me, why would I read this if I don't like? I said because the last chapter I did like. This one had parts that were okay. It just was a step down because they tried to make it move so damn fast that nothing has any kind of lasting impact because they're too afraid to ever not be attached to the same two characters over and over. Guarantee if it was Vegeta fighting the panda or fighting any other character that he was seemingly evenly matched with, didn't have some massive gap in power, they would have had that fight go on for 6, 7, 8 pages. It would have just been continuous. So they just play the same stupid game where they get to basically get upset that someone looks at this and says, "Wait a second, I don't entirely like the way this is going down." And even in having critiques, I give it is constructive criticism because I give multiple parts that are adherents to the story that I think are good. But if they miss the mark and you say, "I don't like this," there's this like herd mentality. Like sometimes when I see people and they look at just any part of this series and they try to defend it or they try to say that it was great, it's like you guys really do like anything with the word Dragon Ball on it. Like you just stick that name on there and you rush over to go see it. Yeah, it's probably going. This arc's probably gonna be over in maybe 4. I give it until the beginning of the summer. I was gonna say it might last for the rest of this year because I thought that series of fights would probably be 2 or 3 chapters, but I'm gonna reverse that because they're moving at they're doing that switch the pacing thing where sometimes it slows, then it's quick, then it's slow, then it's quick. Oh, and they're really afraid to have fights actually take more than 1 chapter. I realized that because if you remember the Goku and Frieza fight in the show was 20 plus episodes, it was just ridiculously long. In the manga, it was long as well, but in this, it's like every fight has to conclude. It's been like that in Super in general, where they're just so afraid to have fights actually take more than an episode. Just all the shock and scare and concern in the world. So I guess the only thing that really came out of this that I liked was seeing Moro's top guy actually get a power up because they haven't really tried to develop any of the minions other than 7-3, which is the one that the hit lookalike that has the move copying thing. And they still got on my nerves their treatment of him because he's supposed to have these unique powers, and we barely get to see him fight a second time. Because I wanted to see him fight the androids, which we get a little panel of it, but it's still them and their pacing issues. I mean, they just have so much potential with a lot of the stuff they set up in 56, and then they just kind of throw it all out the window. As I mentioned earlier, for the sake of going back to the same two people. And it's weird too because uh, I don't think there's going to be anarchy among fans if we don't see Goku for more than 2 pages or a page or just not for one chapter or something. It's not because that happened all the time in Z. So it's kind of weird that now they're trying to push him and act like the whole story has to revolve around him at all times. But yeah, I hate it when they have those villains that they set up as being not as strong as the main antagonist, and then they try to make it seem as though the other characters are actually going to be able to do something meaningful by taking them out, because it ends up not mattering since we just saw that Goku has instant transmission. He can teleport over there, take out all these different opponents. Just the power scaling system really is it's like a one stop fix all where since you're stronger, faster, and whatnot, you can take out all these people. So what's the point of having anybody else even try? I still find the Goku Frieza fight to be my favorite to this day, and I don't even consider Z to be my favorite. Um, I like the well, I think I like to go on and Cell fight more, but it's the Goku and Frieza fight's also up there. I really like when we see Frieza just kind of go through all his different forms fighting uh Vegeta, Krillin, Gohan, and Piccolo because it was just nice to see them having to keep coming up with stuff to try and combat the moves. First, you had him kind of playing with them in the first form, and then the second form getting demolished by Piccolo, and then the Zenkai boost for the Saiyans, making the third one kind of go by a little bit easier, or allow them to have a fighting chance. It was nice. So I say you don't really get that kind of creativity anymore from this series. It's just stronger person shows up. They are too powerful for the rest of the characters to do anything. Goku has to save the day because God forbid anyone else get the victory. Like, wouldn't it have been cool if after Boo defeated Moro or after he had that fight where he was beating them up, he got arrested, and then while he's arrested, uh, all the other soldiers or various prisoners break out, and then that's when they come to save him because they would have it would have been one character having a victory that actually meant something, and the only reason their victory was overruled is because other people did another thing that caused the that to be out of the place, out of the way rather. But they wrote themselves into a corner, so they had to come up with something really quick to make sure that he wasn't used for the rest of the story. I think he actually has been sleeping for most of this arc now. An arc that started with Boo has him sleep. Man, well, I guess at least they're being consistent. He was asleep at the start of it, so now he can be asleep at the end of it and throughout most of it. But yeah, I guarantee the end of this is probably going to be the two Saiyans show up, they beat up everyone. Goku beats Moro. The day is saved. Conclusion of year long arc of, and of course they're going to kill off all the different prisoners because God forbid we have recurring villains. It's not like Frieza has come back 3 times. We can't have anybody else show up a second time. And that would have actually, but that's why they don't have any organic storytelling, because if they were smart, they would make some of the prisoners escape and then find somebody else or get stronger themselves and then show up again. And that could lead into another arc. But no, they're going to kill everybody off, and we're going to go right back to some random person coming out of nowhere and being strong enough to cause havoc again. So yeah, this chapter was really lame. Um, in general, there were some parts I liked it, but it missed the mark. It was too damn fast, and continues the decades long tradition of having all the other characters look weak for the sake of Goku appearing to be so heroic. And I'm just getting tired of having to see that every single month or every single arc. So I'd like some variety. I know they won't do it because they're too afraid to do that. So it's a really frustrating relationship I have with this series. They do all kind of little weird things that annoy me. And they just annoy me because they just get stale. Like what you have a show where you've got 4 characters. We're gonna end it with this. 4 characters: Goku, Vegeta, Tien, and Piccolo, who train all the time without the motivation of a villain showing up. And instead of having that group of 4 at least, like this arc, Piccolo beats this villain. Next arc, Vegeta beats this villain. Next arc, Tien beats this villain. You are so afraid to even give anyone else a serious victory that you have to stay on this one character like crazy. And that's not supposed to be annoying or stupid. And again, this is me simply going off the rules of their own story. That if they just had a show where the only one that trained was Goku and he won every arc, okay, fine, whatever. But it just comes down to them not wanting to use other characters.